Hello. Okay, thank you. So my presentation is a little bit longer than Lauren's, but just wanted to say thank you to everyone for being here. My name is Christina Zeuner. Uh, I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Guelph, and my research is on nitrate transport in groundwater and surface water. And my study area is Burford, Ontario. Today, I'm going to talk a bit about my research that I've done so far, specifically in regards to sampling storm events. First, I would like to point out that, as probably everyone more or less knows who are here, that nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus can be quite harmful in aquatic environments. And when it's in groundwater and consumed, it can be quite problematic for health. One of the pathways for nitrogen to enter aquatic environments is through groundwater transport and nitrogen, transporting nitrate and discharging to surface water. Uh, Characterizing these interactions is difficult but important, especially in the light of climate change conditions. So, to uh, try and better understand these interactions, we have been sampling monthly and targeted precipitation events and are using that data in integrated model using SWAP ModFlow RT3D to essentially run tests on it. In this presentation specifically, I'm just going to focus on how we approach sampling events and what kind of worked and what didn't work so well. So a bit of background on the subbasin that we're interested in. This here, so you can see my mouse. This here is Lower Whiteman's Creek subcatchment, which has the town of Burford, Ontario, right here in the middle, and is located near the outlet of the larger Whiteman's Creek subbasin. You can see it over here. And this is part of the Grand River, which eventually discharges into Lake Erie. So much of the land use for in this area is for cash crops, corn and soy, which are often but not always rotated in this area. And we have a few fields that are doing a rotation of corn, soy, and winter wheat. And there's also some specialty crops with things like broccoli, ginseng, tobacco, and just to mention, this map is coming from the annual crop inventory, specifically 2023. So for our actual sampling, what we've got set up in this area is there's uh, quite a lot of sampling sites that we have set up. So you basically what we've got here is 6 main observation wells that we're looking at. We have 5 surface sampling sites along the main creek, this is Whiteman's Creek, and then also 3 surface watering sampling sites down a specific tributary right here. This is called Landon's Creek. I don't have a specific picture for it, but I should mention that the Lower Whiteman's Creek is part of Norfolk Sandplain, which is characterized by sandy soil and a shallow water table. And then for our sampling setup, a bit more, this is what we call our high resolution site here. And this is our inlet and outlet. And we can see here, so this in the center here, this is the high resolution site. We've got 2 different fields on either side of Landon's Creek, this small tributary. This year, I'm going to talk a bit about it more in the next slide, but this is where we're really doing our higher frequency sampling using 2 different methods, ISCO auto sampler, and then also we have some SUNA and EXO monitoring stations, one here in Landon's Creek, and then we also had one set up at our inlet site and also our outlet site. Now, to focus in on the sampling methods that we use for targeting storm events, like I said, the 2 main methods for in-stream sampling with an ISCO auto sampler and then also our SUNA and EXO. And in addition to that, we had background conditions where we were sampling groundwater and surface water on a monthly basis, as well as maintaining temperature and level probes. Uh, to describe a bit more with the two storm sampling methods, the ISCO auto sampler takes 24 surface water samples, which we had set to sample every 2 hours. Uh, These samples were then collected and processed using ion chromatography. Then the SUNA, on the other hand, is in situ spectrophotometer, which samples light absorbance and correlates that to nitrate concentration. And then also just showing you what we were doing when we were in the field. That you can see a picture here of myself sampling surface water. This is actually at the inlet. We sampled every month, regardless of the seasons, from October 2021 to November 2024. Here's our auto sampler set up. And then next to that is this is an example of the SUNA and EXO station, which is set up at the outlet and powered by solar. So for targeting events with the ISCO, we were able to successfully capture 3 main events, two of which were back-to-back spring precipitation events, and then also the one in the fall. We did try capturing more storm events with this method, but a particular issue that came up was the limitation on the number of samples that it took, as well as the amount of effort that actually went into setting up the station at our chosen location. It was down at the end of a fairly long field that we had to more or less walk down to. Um, and then uh, so that was just a little bit difficult. And one thing that I want to point out that we were kind of saw in the sampling was the between March 23rd and 25th. So these bottom two graphs here, that during the precipitation event, there was a decrease in nitrate concentration in the stream. And then starting about a day later, on the 25th, we see that the nitrate concentration has gone back to the pre-storm events, but really we kind of missed the actual, like the decrease and then the increase again, and that was due to limitation on how many samples we could take. So then the other thing we did, moving over to the SUNA and EXO data, we were able to collect. You can see here the frequency of sampling is a lot higher, but perhaps more importantly to note is that we could install these systems and leave them in place without having to really pre-plan for a storm event and try and capture that, which storm event may or may not really happen and hit where we're expecting it to hit. So that was another one of the difficulties that we saw. But this method we found was really kind of a double-edged sword, perhaps, as we could capture more data, but then we'd have a lot more data to clean like the noise from. And additionally, one of the struggles that we had was with the amount of sediment movement. It would end up actually blocking and filling in our sampling window. So we had to do a bit more work with cleaning and maintaining the systems to make sure we were capturing the events we were expecting. So that being said, we still were able to gather a lot of interesting information about the site and how it responded to storm events, particularly related to nitrate levels. On the left is you can see a few events that happened in August where we had all 3 stations set up. And then the right is just for the inlet and outlet. And here I just want to highlight a notable delay in peak in nitrate concentration that we saw in the main creek. So it took about 6 days for that peak to occur in May between the precipitation event. And well, really we were able to see that peak because we're able to monitor for a much longer period. If we were just using the auto sampler, we definitely would have missed that. Um, So then when we take a look though which is kind of interesting at the SUNA station, which we had placed at the high resolution site, so the same location where we have our ISCO set up. There we can see in red here a very clear drop in nitrate concentration during storm events, and then a pretty quick response back to the pre-storm levels, which is actually very similar to what we saw with the ISCO in the spring events. Which is kind of interesting because we still kind of see it, but in the ISCO, at least we sort of missed some collecting some of the data, but we can still see it here in that different type of response than in the main creek. So, I mean, really the main conclusion is that both methods that we used, we were able to gather some ideas about what was happening during storm events. The Zeuner EXO really benefited from having that higher frequency, but we had a lot of difficulty with sediment transport, and then our auto samplers limited in the quantity that we could actually be taking, but they were a bit more reliable in the sense of uh, not having such an issue with sediment. But of course, it was a lot more difficult to collect, but then the data didn't need as much cleaning. So really pros and cons with both. But I think it is interesting to note that there are two pretty different collection methods, but both, especially at the high resolution site, showed that pretty rapid dilution recovery for nitrate levels, which is giving a bit of a perspective on what might be happening during storm events in the area. And then to maybe tie it a bit more to the groundwater aspect, being able to sample storms will really always be limited. The more samples, the better, but we can also try doing some modeling to test different situations when you're limited in being able to actually grab real life samples. So that's the kind of the next steps in research that I'm doing. So here you can see just kind of a conceptualization of what the integrated model is, swap mod flow and RT3D. And then, yeah, I mean, this is what we're doing. This is where we're moving forward. And I think I just want to highlight that we're pretty lucky in this area to actually have two PGMN wells in our Lower Whitemans Creek area for referencing long-term water and nitrate levels, which we already heard a bit earlier from Heather about. And then we also were able to use the 3D Brantford Woodstock quaternary model for creating the layers within our mod flow model. And that was talked about from Riley. So it's really neat to see all of the new things that are coming up. And at least, this is how I've been using all of those awesome open source databases for my research. And here's just some acknowledgements funded by OMAFA and supported by Morwick G360. My research, my supervisor and myself are from University of Guelph, Jana Levelson, and then my other supervisor, UCAM, is Dr. Marie LaRocque. And then I have to call out Grand River Conservation Authority because they've been a huge help in everything. Thank you. References, and then I know a lot of my graphs were pretty hard to read. I had to blast through them pretty quickly, but there is a publication, open source publication that everyone can have a look at. Should you like to? Thank you for listening.